Anyways, finishing on something Patrick thought would be a good idea. Tadej Pogačar is not going to Vuelta España. Should he be going to the Vuelta España, given that they're sending Juan Ayuso, Almeida, given that Jonas Vingegaard is going, or and Roglic, etc., Remco? It would be an absolutely crazy fan favorite world tour if that was to happen. But should he go, or is it best not to go and focus on the Italian autumn classics or whatever he does?
I just thought, yeah, it'll be interesting to talk about because obviously the alternative is he goes and does the Italian autumn scene, which don't get me wrong, I love the Italian autumn scene, but from a perspective of prestige, would it not make more sense for him to go to La Vuelta? Now that he's got through the tour, yes, I know he didn't win, but he will have probably come out of that stronger. There's a decent rest period between the tour and the Vuelta. Or is it kind of like a case of, is there any point in us going if Jonas is probably going to beat us again, basically, because he beat them at the tour, so likelihood is he'll beat them at the Vuelta. So therefore, it's like, oh, we're basically just going for second place. And let's face it, Tadej is a person who likes to win. He is a winner, so therefore going somewhere for second place doesn't make sense. So I think it makes sense for him to not go because he would essentially just be taking a place away. Like it makes more sense to allow Almeida and Ayuso to improve themselves as a Grand Tour rider or riders rather than Tade just coming in and just being like, yeah, let's have this three-prong Movistar attack, but we're still not going to win. Like he may as well just go and do something else, go into the off season or whatever, and prepare for next year.
Yeah, I mean, these post Tour de France legs could help Pogacar, but it seems like he's sort of winding down almost post Tour de France. He was supposed to go to this like strange event. What's it called? Like the Championnat des Grimpeurs, like the Climbers Championships. It was won by Felix Gauchard in the end, but it was like a mountain. It was like a hill climb thing up a mountain that was cobblestones. Pretty crazy, but he was supposed to go there and then he pulled out of the event like a week ago after the Tour de France. He said that like the likelihood of him going to the Vuelta now, well, the likelihood of him not going is 90%. There's still 10% chance, but I don't think he'll go. I think he'll try to win Lombardia and all those other races as well. I think there's more for him to lose to go to the Vuelta, where I feel like the end of his Tour de France, he didn't look sort of amazing, like tip-top Pogacar. If this were like 2021, Pogacar, I would say, yeah, 100% go straight into the Vuelta. But I just don't think we're seeing tip-top form Pogacar. And they also have Ayuso and Almeida to really anchor down that squad. They've got other riders to give objectives to. So, I don't know. I'm quite content with Pogacar not going, to be honest.
And let's face it, like he will smash up those Italian races, and we bash on about this, but the UAE want to be the top tour, the top team in the world tour, and going and smashing up those Italian one day races does net quite a few UCI points. So they can have Ayuso and Almeida reining some in, probably not as much as Jumbo-Visma in the Vuelta, but then they can supplement that with increased kind of influx from Lombardia, and Valle Vallecine and whatever else they want to do over there. So I also feel like that Pogacar kind of prefers those kind of races. I think he enjoys doing like dabbling in one day races. Obviously, it's not something which Jonas really likes to do, but I think Tadej likes the racing kind of tactical nous that comes with the one day racing. So I think it's refreshing for him rather than doing a grand tour. But do you reckon there'll be a future where, like we've seen this in the past with other like Froome or whatever, where they go and do Tour Vuelta? Do you reckon that's going to be something we see Pogacar do more in the future, or do you reckon that, like we've talked about him going to the Giro and stuff as well? I don't really know what I think is going to happen in the future. Is he just going to kind of change up his calendar every season and just kind of do like, oh, this year I'm doing cobbles and classics, and next year I'm not, and I'm focusing on Vuelta later on?
One Grand Tour season, I think. He's never done two, has he?
No,
No,
he's never done two in
Yeah,
1 year.
exactly.
maybe if he does the Giro Vuelta 1 year. I've always said, like, once Pogacar gets his third Tour de France, or if he gets his third Tour de France, you could probably say nowadays, then he'd probably become more fluid in that Grand Tour schedule of, like, trying to target the other ones. But, yeah, I mean, the Tour de France is just so tough now. It was back in 2016, but, like, it feels like a very different beast now. and riding the Tour de France, then going straight into the Vuelta, it just seems like a lot, to be honest. Even like looking at recent records, Evenepoel didn't ride the Tour de France last year. Year before, Roglic didn't finish the Tour de France. Year before, the COVID year doesn't really count. Then 2019, Roglic won the Vuelta, didn't ride the Tour de France. 2018, Yates won the Vuelta, didn't ride the Tour de France. Froome is the last person who did both, apart from the COVID year with Roglic. Maybe it's just too hard to do, but I think Vingegaard could do it this year. Maybe he'll set a precedent and other riders will now try to jump on that trend.
Yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how, especially Ayuso stacks up against Vingegaard this year. I think it's going to be it's going to be a grand tour of discovery in terms of matchups between riders, I think. But there'll always be the caveat of if Vingegaard doesn't do well, it'll always be, it's because he's done the tour and he's fatigued and stuff. But I'm still quite intrigued to see how UAE's next kind of big prospect in Ayuso. I know there's Almeida, but he just about finished on the podium of Giro this year behind G and Roglic, and that doesn't even include Evenepoel leaving. Like, no offense to Almeida, I just kind of prefer Ayuso's chances. I'm especially intrigued to see how Ayuso stacks up against Jonas in the Vuelta in terms of his ability to also work with Pogačar in the future to provide a 1-2 threat, because I do feel like that could change things in the future with Jumbo. Obviously, Roglic will start to decline, but Ayuso's going to increase up, and that could certainly change the tide of dominance.
Ayuso was in a race the other day as well. He was like soloing. Well, it was him and Lazcano up in front, and he crashed in the final kilometer coming down on a drain cover. He looked pretty bashed up at the end, but seems like he's okay. But hopefully he can bounce back in full fitness for the Vuelta a España. Should be really interesting. He's definitely made a step up this year, because last year felt like, we knew the name, but he really sort of came of age in the Vuelta, where this year there's more sort of signs of improvement towards something great in this year's Vuelta.
Well, anyways, finishing with Rider of the Week, and obviously it hasn't been the most action-packed week, but who's been your Rider of the Week?
I'm actually going to go with Ayuso, I think, because it was, like you say, he slipped on that track. I can't remember what the name of the race was, but he was going to win it, but then he crashed. But he still finished in third place, and then he also finished, I think it was just outside the top 10 in San Sebastian as well. So I think that, I was quite impressed that he actually still held on for a podium place despite the fact that he crashed. And Lazcano